Okay, so I have begun recording.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
I thought it was on and then I think it went away, so. Well, hello everyone. It's an interesting thing to gather together in this way. It's an interesting back to school, but it's a great way to be able to answer questions that you might have. It's also nice to be able to see actual kids because we've been spending all of our time talking about planning for how to support you being back. So we're excited to actually see you. So the plan for tonight is really informally to answer any questions that people have. I can tell you that the staff that are on the screen with you have been part of our Waitsfield-based planning team. We've been meeting for the last month, just talking through a variety of details. And I think since there are some people who are new to us as well, we'll take a minute to introduce ourselves, if that's okay. So I'm Kaya, I'm the principal at Waitsfield School. Would the masked man like to go next?
Hi, everybody. I'm Clayton Wetzel. I am the school nurse. I'm in my office, and so I feel it is appropriate for me to be masked. I would like to share that sign with everybody because that's what we should all be feeling, and the beautiful outside, which we should all be enjoying.
Clayton is in a new office space. For anyone who's wondering if they forgot about Clayton having windows, he has a new office. Liz, you want to go ahead?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Liz Belknap. I teach 3rd and 4th grade at Waitsfield. Nice to see you all.
Eric?
Hi, everybody. My name is Eric Mongeon. I'm the school librarian and tech integrationist, coming to you live from my basement, which has the best connection, so it's a little dark, but here we are. Nice to see everybody.
And my name is Tommy Young. I teach 1st and 2nd grade, and I'm coming to you from my daughter's basement who went to college, and we claimed the space as an office. So I have a brand new office space to Zoom from.
So for people who are joining, we're thinking again that we would run through answering questions you have, and you can ask them by turning your video on, and you can ask a question. It's so exciting to see kids. I'm really super distracted in a great way by it. It's awesome. So you can, when you ask a question, if you could identify just who you are and your connection to the school, that's a great thing. We know, but not everyone might know. I have a question to start us off, actually, that Andrea Cox sent to me today, and then kindly, I said, would you like me to answer by responding, emailing back, or by answering it in the forum? And she said that she'd come to the forum, so thank you, Andrea. So there are 2 questions, and Andrea, you can feel free to chime in if I don't get them right. But the first one was about an update on the status of our HVAC system in the building and the ability to ensure sufficient ventilation to mitigate virus spread. Staff who were in the building experienced this today because we are doing some of the work. We booked having work done I think 7 weeks ago, and they were able to get in to do it. The only work being done for our HVAC system now is to accommodate the move of our nurse's office. So we put in an HVAC system that's dedicated for the nurse's office. And then we've also established an isolation room, which would be if there's anyone that has a potential case of COVID. And we have a separate ventilation that we put in for that room. So that's being finished or worked on right now. I have pictures of it from today, as well as some ventilation being added into our guidance counselor's office. Our guidance counselor has moved to what used to be the fishbowl room. So those were 2 spaces identified as not having sufficient ventilation for what we needed. The rest of our system is running just fine. The one place we have a glitch is when it gets below 0. Some of our newer systems actually were put in tend to shut off and cycle at a speed that's different from what we want. So we have plans for that. It's just the installation of a heating coil going in So it's not a significant change to the system, and that's planned to happen later in September. Otherwise, our whole systems have been tested. That happened 4 weeks ago, a complete check of the load of the system, and we're good to go. We've been pretty regular about cleaning our HVAC and tending to it over the years. So. Anything else about HVAC? Sorry, the phone is ringing in my house. Andrea had another question, so I'll go ahead and I'll ask that one then, and then field any others. So this is a question about how much outdoor classroom time is planned, at least for the fall months. And then can we expect there to be designated time each day for classroom instruction to happen outdoors? So I'll start by responding, and then I would ask Liz or Tom to add into this. So we are planning for there to be outside time every day, not specifically for instruction, but for mask breaks. So we have planned at least 2 mask breaks to happen each day. And to take your mask off, unless you're eating or drinking, you need to be outside and maintaining a distance of 6 feet apart or more. So we're having time dedicated just for a mask break built into the day, and that will be outside. So there are those 2 times. Then at recess, we are asking that kids would wear their masks at recess so they can play and be interacting and not worrying about keeping distance apart, the 6 feet the whole time. But there is an option at recess to be able to have a mask break then as well. We've got some designated spots that kids can be. And beyond that, in terms of time outdoors, we have continued with the same approach that we've done before of if people have that as part of their program and their curriculum, that they will be outdoors. And I know some people are planning some increased time, but that's really a teacher-driven decision as opposed to a directive for everyone to be outside. Liz or Tom, do you have anything to add to that?
Liz, you want to say anything?
I would just add to that we will definitely be outside a lot. We'll be outside as much as we can. The instruction will, for the most part, happen inside, but there will be outdoor activities, and we'll be outside, like Kaya said, for recess and mask breaks. If there is a circumstance where the curriculum does match or fit for us to be outside, for example, if we're studying life cycles and studying the life cycle of the butterfly or something like that, we'd be able to be outside for more of an educational purpose. But we haven't had the time or the resources to change our entire programming to fit outdoor education. So it will be more doing our work outside than an outdoor education-based system.
Yeah, and I think I'd add on to what Liz was saying. I think what's great about teaching in Vermont and living here is when the opportunity affords itself, we do tend to bring the outdoors or go to the outdoors. So I think when it's appropriate and we can, effectively use our 2 days in person to get some academic stuff done, we will make it happen. So I agree with everything that Liz said too.
We have also, I should have added, we have put some tents. You'll see a few appear, and our bigger tent came today. So we have a larger tent that will go behind the school, and we have some additional seating options for being outside. So we have looked to be able to accommodate outside time more than our facility would before. The only other thing I'd add is that our preschool is looking to base itself with much more time outside. So our preschool program will be predominant, we'll be starting the day outside and spend a bulk of their time outside. Andrea, did you want to add to your question in any way, or did we answer what you're looking for?
No, that's great. Thank you very much.
Kaya, there's a question from Micah Lasher. I sent it to you, and so if you want to read it first and start, I can go after you if you'd like.
Absolutely. So Clayton has been working with a team of nurses all summer long on addressing a lot of the health-related protocols that we have in place. So this question is, what is the protocol if a student has a fever when doing a temperature check in the morning? And what needs to happen for them to return to school? Clayton, I'll let you take that.
Okay, so there was a document put together by the VCHIP program, UVM Children's Hospital, and the Department of Health, and it's a flow chart to help school nurses work with the practitioners. And there's some very specific things that hoops that need to be gone through. If we have any student that's at school that has a temperature of 100.4 or above, they're obviously going home. And depending on what other symptoms go along with that. So there's a checklist, and I won't go into full details, but there are specific things, thresholds of what may require a PCR test or a COVID test, or just another diagnosis. So say you had a sore throat and a fever of 100.4 or higher, and you do go to your PCP, the primary care provider, and they find that you have strep throat. So once you have done your 12 hours on an antibiotic and you no longer have a fever without any medication and you're feeling better, then the student can come back to school because we have a specific diagnosis that's not COVID. And so it's really gonna depend on what all the symptoms are. But because I'm a nurse, so I can't diagnose, and I don't say I'm a nurse to degrade myself because I know that's a very important position, but I'm not a doctor and can't diagnose. So we have to make an assumption during a pandemic that it's very possible that the symptoms could be COVID related, and we have to be careful. There is one, if you have a fever only, it lasts less than 24 hours, and it resolves and there's no other symptoms, then you can come back to school after it's resolved, that fever is resolved, you're feeling better, and there's still no other symptoms. But this discussion would take place between myself, the parent, and very likely the primary care provider for that individual family, so that there's a determination. I'm actually going to have a call on Thursday night with Dr. Eckhouse from CDMC. We have all the providers in the area, and they're going to talk about how the school nurses within the center of Vermont are going to be working with the providers, and how we're going to do that communication piece and make sure the families know, as well as the nurse and the provider, so we can make sure that we're getting the right amount of care that's necessary. And if that hasn't answered your question, please feel free to unmute and ask for additional details. Or if somebody else has a question, please feel free.
Clayton, can I add that the process of the protocol, just of the screening, to reiterate, is a child will be screened, and if there is one of the elements of the screening that isn't passed, they won't come into the school, but there'd be a follow-up phone call that would happen from the nurse. So Clayton is not individually doing the screening. We have 4 different screening stations set up so that we can move people into the building, hopefully without too much delay. And so people who are doing the screenings will take note of it. Obviously, then that child wouldn't come in, but there would be that follow-up communication that would help advise about the steps to take. So while Clayton can't diagnose, he does have those algorithms in the chart to give the advice on that.
And Kaya, I can actually add. So I'm sorry I missed that part of it was specific to screening. So if you had if your child was at home and shows the temperature of 100.4 and you already know that they can't come to school, you can still contact me and I can help make that coordination with the primary care provider, or you can call the provider directly. We're just trying to coordinate as much as we can to make sure that everyone has the right information. So each situation is going to be a little bit different. And of course, the most important part of it is that you and your child are healthy and are responded to appropriately. So that's really what the algorithm is based on, and what our desire within the school to make sure that you're getting the right care.
The other thing I wanted to mention about the screening was that it is important that children who are in second grade and under have an adult with them to be able to answer the questions. So if your child is getting on a bus, there needs to be an adult with them to answer the questions. And if your child is in third grade or up, you still want to be close by, because if they were to not pass the screening, they need to go home. So if you're dropping a child off at school, you don't have to walk up to the building with a child to go into the screening, but you should please not leave the parking lot till you know that they're in. And like I said, we're hoping to do that fairly quickly. Does anyone have any questions for us? Go ahead, Matt.
First, just your statement there raised a question. Does that mean kids can't ride their bike or walk alone to school?
It's a really good question. It's one of the first, we really problem solved. We talked about this. So if your child rides their bike to school, then, and your child is under second grade or under rather, that's a problem. So children up until second grade, you're going to have to ride or walk with them, so you're there to answer the question. If your child is a fifth grader and your child rides their bike to school and they don't pass, then they're there waiting. We are not going to let your child just ride their bike home, not just because it's a valley and it's a bigger ride up for kids, but because we assume that when you've had them leave home, you think that they're going to school. And so the only students who will be allowed to fail the screening and walk away without a parent would be high school students. So we would ask that if you send your sixth grader riding their bike to school, that you follow them, or you know that if they fail the test that you're going to have to come and get them. And we have very limited capacity to be able to house kids who fail a test. We're thinking if your child doesn't pass screening, we don't want to put your child into a room with 5 other kids who didn't pass the screening. So in fact, we're not going to do that, but we will run out of spaces very rapidly of where to house them. The shorter answer is, we'd like you to ride your bike with them.
Great, thank you. The other question I had before that last statement was, are there any talk or plans of bringing, either mixing up the way the groups, the classes are broken up, or bringing them together? When it was 1 day a week, our kids were kind of okay with missing some of their best friends. 2 days a week makes it even harder. 4 days a week for K through 4. Socially, some of their best friends are, they're potentially not going to see them for a while in school anyway, but realistically, they're going to be playing soccer together. They're going to be, eventually skiing together. They're having sleepovers. I think as parents, we know a lot of this is happening. So just, I think that's one of the, my kids anyway aren't worried about masks. They're, a lot of that stuff is commonplace, but not going to school with some of their closest friends is some of the hardest lessons we're trying to drill into them, that's just the way it's going to be. But is there any talk of that changing or mixing it up or something like that?
Well, by talk, certainly people have asked about it,
Sure.
including staff members, like trying to think about what we could do. We appreciate the incredible complexity of what people have done to make their schedule of what we're offering for in-person school and out-of-person school work. So we don't believe that changing things mid-stride, unless we go to more days of in-person, which obviously would change things for the younger students, right? Then they would be together. But we aren't planning to change it. We appreciate that people also have kids across different schools, and there was an effort to be coordinated somewhat about using the alphabetical list, just to have a common way. So if you had a child at, say, Harwood is a high school student or a middle school student, and at the elementary school, that they could be on similar days as much as possible. So for now, our plan is not to commingle them or to change the groups. However, we've talked about how we can really keep the connections between the classes. So if you think about it, it's kind of an interesting, you've got a twin class that is in the room when you're not there, and how do we bring those students together. So that might happen through a morning meeting that happens when we go into the 2-3 schedule. That would be on Wednesdays, a morning meeting that brings kids together. That might be assignments that they do together, or writing back and forth. And then the other thing I wanted to just mention is that students will still have math as a grade level instruction. And so they will be mixed with the other group at their grade level for first grade and up. And then at recess, all the first and second graders together, all the third and fourth graders are together, and all the fifth and sixth graders are together.
Thank you.
John, John, did you have a question?
Yeah, Kaya, I sent you an email. I hope this mic works. I was just asking because I'm a teacher and I'm going to school now and wearing a mask all day, and I wear just reading glasses and they fog up. And I know that this is like something that an adult can deal with, but I was wondering if like with the kids who wear glasses to school, they're going to get, I know my son's going to get frustrated. Have any tips and tricks, and what kind of masks work better? Maybe Clayton knows. I've tried the ones with the metal piece and I'm not sure. I was just wondering, I know you have mask breaks, which I just found out, which is great. I was wondering if you could share any other ideas you might have for kids with glasses.
So having a child who has glasses and wearing glasses myself, I would offer that there is a spray that you can apply that really helps. So my son has been putting it on regularly. Once you clean it, it goes away, but it does help really diminish the fogging. But there are other people with glasses on. Tom, did you have something you wanted to suggest?
Sorry, I'm trying to get my computer on mute. It's going to sound kind of funny, but I've been trying to focus on breathing through my mouth because I go to the grocery store or whatever, and it's like, and it does seem to work a bit by pushing, like I kind of breathe down through my mouth and push it out towards my chin. And that prevents some fogging. It's hard to teach. I mean, I've been working on it now for a bit, but I find sometimes when I pinch it really tight, it helps. But nothing, I haven't found anything that's prevented it 100%.
Another trick that you might try, and I never shave, but shaving cream with menthol is said to, if you can treat the inside of the glasses with that shaving cream, it does keep the steam from building up on the inside of the glasses. And then I can do a little additional research to see if there's any specific model. Usually it has to have a seal like across the bridge of the nose, more than just the wire, but something that has maybe a little bit of I'm trying to think of the right term, but some material that blocks that from going up, and it allows you to breathe down. Not a vent, but just something that keeps the going up, and then that sometimes can work too. But I can make sure that I get that information to Kaya, and we'll put it in one of our FAQs for future. Because if you're asking the question, we have others that wear glasses; they're going to feel the same thing.
That spray that I was talking about, not to promote any business, but our local eye doctor has it, and it's $5 a bottle. Any other questions? I'm sorry, I didn't look over at my computer before, so I'll check that as well. Any things that kids are wondering about?
So Kaya, I did have just a quick note here. Did we already talk about schedule? I don't know if there was any more specifics that you wanted to get into with class schedules, but maybe go through that a little bit.
Yeah, I can answer questions I can talk about schedule, and just run through things. And I actually had a question as well, which is just it's helpful for me to know what's the best way to get information, and if people feel like they've got a good sense about how things will work on the first day. We want to make sure that you understand as much as possible what it will look like, so you can help prepare your student for what it would look like. So I will talk about that, but I saw, Matt, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I'll just ask it because I haven't heard it from the district level yet. Is there ever a time where 5 and 6, I guess more specifically Valley 5 and 6, because they're not with 7 and 8, go 4 days a week, like K through 4?
In the plan that we have right now, that is not the case. The guidance that came from the state has the age as 10, as where there's a real difference between maintaining distancing. So if you are going, if we put our 5th and 6th graders into the classroom, all of them at the same time, we're not maintaining a 6-foot distancing. And that has remained in the guidance still, that we should be doing that with students who are 10 or older. Clayton, would you, I'm on track there.
You are. So it's PK to 4 would be, from the guidance from what the Department of Health and what the infectious disease doctors are saying is, so the magical age is really 10. And so they're saying PK to 4, so 5, 6 through 12 would then still be on some type of hybrid, more hybrid system, because there's no way to do the 6 feet, the physical distancing in the classrooms with full load classes without doing that. And I have not seen anything, and that's in the most recent guidance and some facts that just came out recently. It's still talking about that. So pre-K through 4th grade would be very likely to be very soon to be 4 or 5 days a week. 5 through 12 is going to take a little longer until we really get a handle on how this is going to look in Vermont.
So what I would add to that, Matt, is that the guidance, the guidance changes. And so we build our plan around what the guidance we're given is. So it's not even, Clayton knows the epidemiology of it. We're really doing what the state tells us is what we need to be maintaining is the standards. And if the guidance changes from the state, then our plans will need to adapt as well. There is new information coming out all the time. They released 3 new documents in the last 5 days. So, our plans adjust as we need to. So I don't want to say it will never happen, because if what we're told changes, then we'll need to change too.
And Kai, I just wanted to make a correction. So I'm looking at the FAQ that came out. So the fact that came out on the 31st, and I don't know if today's the 1st or not. So it came out yesterday, so I'm still trying to digest it. It says pre-K through 5th grade. And I don't know, because of our banding, if we would make a determination that 5, 6 needs to stay together. So pre-K through 5th, but that magic age of 10 is happening right at that point. And so, but the age of 10 is not the grade, it's really the age that makes the difference, because that's where the viral load becomes such that the transmissibility of that is much higher. And that's where we really need to make sure we have that full 6 feet instead of a 3 to 6 barrier for the physical distancing.
Thank you. And I guess just one follow-up. Are we, I guess I say we as the Valley, are we tied to Waterbury and how Crossbrook is set up 5 through 8 versus K through 6? Like, is that, would that ever come to the point where Valley schools couldn't move to 4 or 5 days, 5 to 6 because of that?
I think it adds a complication in, but I don't think, I think that if the guidance changed and it said you're good to go for kids up to 12, we'd be trying to do that across our entire district. We certainly, in the planning that happened over the summer, we contemplated whether there might be differences that happened, like at Harwood, like maybe the middle school was in, but the high school wasn't. This was early on before the guidance came out. So we did look at models that had, even within a school, different things happening, like we're doing now. We have a different plan for what would happen K4 and then 5, 6. So I don't think that, Matt, we are tied in. Yes, certainly it makes it complicated, but we're not tied necessarily in that way. But I think if we felt like it was okay for 5th and 6th graders to be in school and we could maintain that, we'd be doing that at all of our schools. And if it meant that like the 7, 8 at CrossFit didn't come in, then they wouldn't. We're not bound to that. It's just by what our age cluster is.
Thank you.
Hey, Kaya.
Go ahead.
This is Chris Badger. Just to follow on that, I just want to make sure we're on the same page. So, I do think we're on one of the more conservative schedules, comparing against, other friends and coworkers across the, kind of Burlington School District and other areas. And just didn't know, following on Matt's question, that it just seems surprising that we're the only school system that can't maintain that distancing for that older school, age group, and just didn't know if you were getting the same feedback from other school districts that they were either overcoming that or running into barriers on that front.
In the last report that the superintendent shared with the board, and this has been in Vermont Digger as well, there's some really good graphics about what is happening around the state, what different districts are doing. It does vary really, really widely. So we happen to be on one side of us, we have districts that are attempting to do a lot more days of in-person school than we are starting with. And we have, then our plan looks more in line with what some other districts that are around the Burlington area or in the middle of the state are doing. I'd say, Chris, that I think there's lots of feedback and opinions about what should be happening. I don't know, because I haven't been in the nitty-gritty of the planning and what any other district is trying to do, although I've heard some things. And I think it's important to really uncover what's meant by in-person school in different places. So for example, there are places that are having kids come in and sit in front of their computers and all of their classes are delivered to them remotely while they're on their screen in the building. That's what some districts are doing. So even when you dig into what the plans look like, there's some really tremendous variability there. We are cautious. I will tell you, having been in the thick of trying to make the things happen, I don't know how we could have more students coming into the building on the first day and follow our safety protocols. We're stretched in terms of our staff to meet what we're supposed to be doing. It is it's all hands on deck. Everybody's already working a lot more hours during the day than they were before because of where everyone is and how to meet that. So I'll be really curious to watch those other schools who are opening more and how they pull that off in those details. Our intent is to make sure that we can do it and that the system works, and then to increase. So that's the stepping in, starting with one day, like make sure it works, that everyone knows what we're doing. Also, that first 2 weeks, the first 9 days of school, allows us to be giving some more connections with kids through meetings, through Zoom meetings or video conferences. Once we go to the 2-3 model, which we're planning to do on the 21st of September, then instruction that is live will be in person, our 2 days. And then we'll have a little bit of capacity on Wednesdays, but it moves to having Thursday and Friday, if you're a Monday, Tuesday student, being synchronous or asynchronous work, independent work. So the other rationale behind the way we eased in was to make sure we were maximizing the opportunities to connect with kids, and then move to that 2-day where they have to kind of be able to function independently for a couple of days. I don't know that I answered your question, Chris, other than to say, to explain a little of the rationale of what we're doing. Did I get what you were looking for?
Yes, thank you. You did open up my next question, which was on the asynchronous versus synchronous, and why, when we shifted 2 days a week for in person, that we switched to the 3-day asynchronous.
So if I understand your question, you're wondering why, when we go to 2 days of in person, does it become 3 days of asynchronous?
Correct.
Yeah. So to be clear, it's 2 days of in-person, then Wednesday is a day when staff will be able to do a connection. So they will have a meeting. So for example, I know Tom Tom is planning that he'll have a morning meeting happening on Wednesday and a math instructional time on Wednesday. So there will be some live meetings. But then Thursday and Friday, Tom couldn't be giving live meetings because he's teaching. He's in his classroom with the Thursday, Friday kids. So when we increase in-person days, the correlate is that the number of asynchronous days also needs to increase. Just because we can't be in two places at one time, even with technology.
Sure. So there's no consideration for doing like a live, just, one unidirectional engagement with students on those 3 days.
There was definitely been consideration. There was a lot of discussion about that. And there are a few reasons for not doing that. The first being, we feel like that connection is so important. And if I'm teaching a classroom, I need to be connecting with those kids that are there. And I'm not doing my due diligence if I'm connecting with the kids that are in the room and there are these people who are on the screen who I'm not able to connect in the same way. That felt like potentially not doing a good job in either spot. So that was one element. Larger than that, it's pretty complicated and takes equipment to be able to teach a lesson. Like right now, I'm standing in front of my computer. I have a big screen computer that I have. I have a microphone that I borrowed it from my son actually. So I can stand right here and do it. But if I was to be moving around, then you're not able to hear me in the same way if I don't have the microphone, and if I don't have the camera, it doesn't do it. So just even the sheer equipment capacity to be able to do a live lesson while I'm recording it and sending it out on the computer, we weren't equipped to be able to do. So we're not, except for very special occasions, doing that.
Sure. Thanks.
So Kaya, a question that was submitted from Amy Cohen was, did some parents choose remote only from Waitsfield Elementary, and what % of students chose that?
Yeah, so I can't tell you the percent. I actually haven't calculated it as a %, so I can't answer that question. But yes, we had some students choose to enroll in the remote academy. I think our number of students, I can double check it right now. I think that we are at about 10, maybe 12 students that are enrolled in the remote academy. And the reason I'm a little foggy on the numbers is because the students in preschool who are participating in that, they will continue to be served by our preschool teacher. So they're not really in the remote academy, they're just 100% remote. So yes, we did have students choose to do that. Our enrollment currently, if I consider those students still part of our mix, our total enrollment is at 146 students. That's the highest it's been in some time. And I'm just doing a quick count now. So we have 13 students who are enrolled in the in 100% remote. Any other questions?
Okay, another question is, will there be an afternoon program?
Yes, that's a really good question. So I think you're talking about the Open Hearth After School program. And that program is not running at the start of school. They are hoping that they would be able to begin when we go to 2 days in, so on the 21st. It's a tentative plan, and it's not based on the school allowing it or not. It's about whether or not they have capacity and staffing to be able to offer that. So that board has been meeting over the summer and hoping to be able to get things running. I think that they'll be communicating out about that in the next day or two, if I remember the communication that's happened there.
So Kaya, another question is, how many new families are joining the school?
Well, new families, again, this is tricky because I don't calculate it by families. I look at the total number of new students. And Then it also gets tricky because do you count our 3-year-olds who are joining our school? They're new to our school, but is that a new student or not? If I don't count those new 3-year-olds into our count, then we currently are at 24 new students in our school. And then you add preschool in and there's even more. So it's awesome, it's great. And some of the families that are new to our school are on this call now. And I just wanna I want to recognize that I think that for many of us that we've chosen to be here over the years for different reasons. And I think that this is a really receptive community, but it's a really hard time to make connections with others when we're wearing masks and trying not to hang around the school parking lot because other cars need to come through. So I'm just going to ask families that are the old families, the ones that have been here, to just make sure, please, to be particularly reaching out to our new families. We're all trying to find ways to make connection and form community. And I think we have to put extra work into that now more than ever. Any questions?
Kaya, I have a quick question. I just got the schedule for the synchronous or the remote and in-person days, and it looks like there's the days going until 2:15 on the remote days. And I guess I did read the attendance policy. It's going to be very challenging for my family to supervise an entire day, 3 days a week, to make sure that kids Zoom on. So if students are present for part of the day, but not the specials portion of the day, what does that mean for attendance, for, I don't know, all of it?
Yeah. So first of all, I want to state a couple of things that there are, so classroom teachers are sharing schedules out. If you haven't gotten a schedule for your child yet, don't worry, it's coming. We've been working through different pieces. So those are getting shared out. And so I wanted to mention that. And not everyone goes until 2:15. Each classroom is structuring what their remote, the offsite learning days looks like. Also, I just want to note, Kim, I think you're talking about what the offsite learning was in the 1-4 schedule. So the first schedule, the schedule that was for the first 2 weeks. After that, when we move to having asynchronous or independent work happening on the days when they, on say Thursday, Friday, if you have a Monday, Tuesday child, then that's work that you schedule with your family about when it's done, right? That end time doesn't apply in the same way. And Wednesdays, I don't believe that anyone will have a class going until 2:15 because we have staff meetings. So, I don't think
well, so the one I got says Wednesday, all remote, morning meeting, writing, snack, math, break, reading, video, read aloud, lunch, Belknap Zoom specials, and Hale Zoom specials, and it ends at 2:15.
Oh,
so if
I can speak to that, Kaya, if you want.
Yeah.
Hi, Kim.
Hi.
So as you know, we're putting together schedules that include in-person days, remote days, asynchronous, synchronous. We're all here, we're all there. So everything is a draft, and we have specialist schedules that we needed to create a schedule for so the specialists could be sure to fit. So there are days when in the 1-4 model when the specials will be at the end of the day. If that's not the case on the day that we're fully remote, then that could be just an error in the scheduling. But I know that when we're in the building and when in the 1-4 model, the specials are at the end of the day.
Yeah, so back to my question.
about
I
attendance.
mean, the reality is I'm not going to be able to have him there. I can't do it. So unless somebody's going to do it for me, I can't do it. So I don't know, what does that mean for attendance?
Yep. So first I want to say that what on the remote days, and we can just, everyone's schedule, you'll get your specific schedule. It won't go until 2:15. We can clarify that part. And then when we go to Wednesdays, it also won't be going until 2:15. But about attendance. The way our attendance policy reads, or the attendance expectation is that every student in kindergarten and up is going to be asked to engage in daily a check-in. And the check-in is comes in a form for the younger kids. It's got visuals that will accompany it, but it's really checking in, saying, hey, are you there? And some of you are familiar with it because your students got questions in their Google Classroom to answer last year. It's a question to answer or checking in. That's what we'll do for our sheer attendance taking, so that we know somebody's out there and they're okay. After that, they'll have work to do, which may be live work, like maybe a live meeting, or it may be asynchronous work. If a child doesn't show up for a synchronous meeting, you don't need to call us and contact us and tell us. We are not going to be tracking you down because your child doesn't show up at one meeting. However, if they're consistently not at a meeting, we want to be clear, they'll be missing part of the instruction. That's part of what we're delivering for our programming. And so if they're not there, they'll miss a component of that. So you asked Kim about a specials class. It would mean that if a child is regularly not able to participate in the specials work, then they would not be getting the full program. What I want to just mention again, though, is when we go to the 2-3 schedule, a lot of the work is asynchronous when it's off-site. So PE will have asynchronous tasks. They can be done anytime, and that will be a component of it. And then we're really maximizing those in-person days. That's when we've got them in the best way possible, and there'll be instruction happening then. Tom, go ahead.
And Kaya, the last point you just made is really the key to the whole conversation. The asynchronous days, like most of us are revising our schedules already just because we're trying to make so it can work, and we realize. But the asynchronous days, when we go to the 2-3, a lot of us are saying, here are things you have to get done. Find the time that works with your family, because we know people and we're all doing the same thing with our kids and trying to figure out how to work and do all that. So we get that. And I think you're going to see there's some flexibility in those asynchronous days to get stuff done. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kaya, but I believe even the specialists are thinking some of the asynchronous days would be follow-up stuff that they did in person that the kids can continue to work on, or check in on some kind of assignment and then work on it on their own on those asynchronous days. So if you can't do it at 2, but you say, hey, tonight at 5, we're going to sit down and do this because it works, that's probably going to work in most asynchronous situations.
And when we go to the 2-3 schedule, the applied arts teachers will be having a drop-in check-in time on Wednesday. So you may know, some of you know that our applied arts teachers, many of them teach in more than one building. They aren't going to be doing half-hour-long lessons for every single grade cluster, because Jeremy Hill would be teaching, I think we figured out 40 classes if he did that. So they'll be offering a drop-in time, and that's a chance where if a child was struggling with some of the asynchronous tasks, or not able to connect in a different, not able to do something, they could drop in and check in, or even just have contact with that teacher. We want to work with families around attendance. We want to make sure people are okay. We want to make sure that we're making our learning accessible, but we also want to be clear that there's some boundaries to what we can do. If someone isn't present for work, then it's hard for us to keep the flow going. Just like if a student, if a student doesn't do the classwork for several weeks, then that student might be having a harder time in class. So if someone's, really the larger issue is if they're not doing any of the asynchronous tasks at all, that might make it tricky for the child back in the classroom. But we're going to work with you and try to figure that out. We want to make sure that kids are learning, and we want to make sure that it's doable. So there's the balancing act. I see that there's there are two questions that came in, and one of them I want to. So I'm going out of order, but it's connected about specials like music, art, PE. Are they mandatory? So this is a question that Carrie Rounds asked, but a number of people asked last year. Things. Again, our attendance policy, you have to show up, you have to engage in the work or you have to engage in that question we ask. Then after that, we're saying if you don't engage in the work that we offer, like if you don't engage in the music assignments, then we're not offering you music. We're not going to hunt you down and send the truancy officer after you. By the way, I'm the truancy officer. But we do want to be clear that your child would be getting a much less of a music class experience. So if you think about the fact that they're in person only 2 days a week, let's go with the 2-3 model. We don't have all of our specials happening every week. If that was the case, then kids would do pretty much nothing but the applied arts. And as great as it would be to have a full day with Eric every day, we want to create the balance for what's happening. We also want to make sure that our teachers who go between different schools aren't vectors of passing things around. So the way we're having the arts work is that teachers will be based in a school for a week. Jeremy Hill, who teaches music, is in 4 schools. He'll be with us in person 1 week of the month, or on a 4-week cycle. So every student in person will get that in-person contact time once a month, or 2 times a month, because there'll be 2 days for the in-person days. The rest of the time, they'll be accessing the work that's offered asynchronously and have that drop-in time with Jeremy. So if a child was to miss, say in a week, just in the workflow, they weren't doing the music assignments, they're still going to be able to be part of the program. But if they're regularly not doing any music assignments, then the only way they'd be accessing the music education would be with that in-person meeting that happened on those 2 days of the month. So we just want to make sure people understand what they'd be getting if they weren't participating there. Again, we're not sending the truancy police after you. We just want to be explicit about what you'll be able to participate in and what you'll be gaining if kids don't attend. I don't know if any of the people on the team want to add to that in any way.
I'll chime in just a minute. It's in less of the capacity as a specials teacher and more as a parent. I'll say that it was certainly a struggle. I have 2 children, and it was hard to manage at first, but one thing my daughters really loved was like the spirit of community. So if there was like an art assignment that was then posted, again, this was asynchronous work, but pulled in from different classes or across the whole school, they really felt like they were part of something. So there is that element of gaining the instruction, but there's also that sense of belonging and contributing to something that I think kids really crave. And the arts have a unique way of spanning that across the whole building. So I would just throw that out as a plug there.
I think, Matt, you had your hand up, but there's another question from Carrie I just wanted to come back to, which is asking again about the protocols, including 5th grade, since some children in that grade are 10 years old, and they will not be going 4 days a week, just confusion about why that is. So I just want to restate the guidance that the decision we made the supervisory union, HUUSD, the unified district made, was based on the guidance that we weren't going to have some 5th graders come in and some not. So we are having K through 4 come in. For the initial part, everyone's doing the same thing. 1 day in, then on the 21st, unless the systems blow up, which we put a lot of work into making sure we don't think they will, but on the 21st, we'll all go to 2 days of in-person school, regardless of age. And then after that, we'll be looking at the metrics of all of the information we have about attendance and staff. And if you look on the HUUSD website, there's a long list of metrics of data that we're gathering that will inform the next step, which would be only for kindergarten through 4th grade to come in for additional days. Matt, you had your hand up?
Yeah, just back to the arts and music. Is there a band, instruments and lessons, and I think my son likes it, but he's certainly not going to do it without being with a teacher. Independent practice in 5th, 6th grade seems hard.
So yes, the initial guidance that came out about band was kind of frightening. It was saying that band and chorus were about the most dangerous activities you could do. And I've shared this with people. The only things banned right now, not allowed, are cheerleading and football, just so you know. Turns out you can play instruments, and they even have silly things like masks that you can put on your instrument. So band will be happening. Last year, Carolyn Adams arranged a lot of remote lessons, which she'll be continuing because it can work in people's schedules. The nice thing is finally kids don't have to miss like part of math class to get a lesson. It can be fit in on their off-site learning days. And there will be some experiences that are in person that are banned, but there is not a way for the full band, under the guidance, for the full band to be in a room and playing together. It's not allowed. It's not that we don't want to. But we can do small ensemble things.
Thanks.
If there are, I'm conscious of time and really respectful of everyone taking their time to come to be part of this. I want to answer any other questions, but it also, because there's some different people, if you have capacity to introduce yourself, if that would be okay, I'd love for people to just say who they are, and you don't have to say the names of your children if you don't wish to, but just the ages of your children, because some of you have kids that will be in classes together. If that would be okay, I'd love to do that just to help build connections. So I'm gonna go ahead. Amy, you want to go ahead?
No, I was in the top left of my screen, so I figured maybe I was first. I'm Amy, this is my husband, Gary.
Hello.
And our son, Ben, is joining the 5-6 class in Waitsfield. And we have a 6th grader we're sending to a different school, just so they're not in the same class.
And I think that your son will be in Dan Greenleaf's class.
Yes.
Yeah. John, do you mind going next?
Yeah, mine in the top left on my screen. Maybe it's a default.
That's how it works.
I have twin boys in the 6th grade, one in each class, and we're in whatever the Thursday, Friday group are.
I think we need to come up with names for our groups, right?
Yeah.
Matt, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, Matt Lillard. I have my wife and I have 2 kids, one in 6th grade, one in 2nd. 6th grader is Monday, Tuesday, or A group, go A. And that's a 2nd grade daughter in Mr. Hubbard's class. Oh, 6th graders in G's class, Mr. Greenleaf.
You're not Sarah Ibsen.
No, can't say that I am.
Yeah.
I'm Jonah Ibsen. Our son Lev, right here, is going into 5th grade, be in Van's class. Our daughter Noah, proud graduate of this fine institution, and she's coming to our neck of the woods down at Harwood, where my wife Sarah teaches 7th grade and I teach high school.
I teach 8th grade.
Sorry. I meant to say middle school.
I wouldn't have corrected you, Jonah, just for the record.
Thank you.
Marcy, do you mind going next?
My name's Marcy, and I have twins, Spencer and Mira, and they are in 4th grade. They're going into 4th grade, and we just moved to the Valley. So we are part of that 24 students who are new. We're going to be all virtual. And we're really excited to be here and hoping to connect with the community and grateful to be here. Thank you.
I saw Becca. Oh, Becca, would you mind going next?
Hi, I'm Becca. My son Ben Reese is going to be in 1st and 2nd grade this year. We are super excited to be spending our year in the Valley and part of that group of 24. And already my husband and I are plotting how we can stay here longer because we have always loved this place. So thank you.
Michelle, do you mind going?
Sure. I can claim 2 groups here. I can claim Twin Sanity and part of the group of 24. Michael, who is on as M. Joseph in the dark right now, is my husband. And our sons are Emmanuel and Elijah Joseph, and they will be in the 2nd grade. They're in one of each in the class. And wanting to move to the Valley for years, and it's fabulous that we finally got pushed. So we're really excited to be part of the community more than we have been historically. So thanks.
Andrea, do you mind going next? You're muted.
Sorry. Hi, I'm Andrea Cox. My husband Matt and I have 3 daughters, 2 graduates of Waitsfield and 1 5th grader who will be in Van's class. Her name is Caroline.
Kim, do you want to go ahead if you're still there?
Yeah, I'm here. One sec, sir. I'm cooking at the same time, and I have to turn my screen back on. I just messed it up. So I am Kim Laidlaw. I'm trying to get my video back on. I can do this. Okay, there we go. Sorry, hi. I'm Kim Laidlaw. I have 3 children. I have a daughter, Lucy, a son, Liam, who's in high school, a daughter, Lucy, who just graduated from Waitsfield last year, and a son, Jack, who's still at Waitsfield, and he'll be a 4th grader, and he is in Ellie Hale's class.
Carrie, do you want to go ahead?
Hi, I'm Carrie. My husband Will and I have 1 son, Kane, and he's going to be in Mr. Van's class.
So now we get to, well, I can tell for some people. So Micah, I don't know if you have video capacity or if you want to introduce yourself, if you're there.
I'm Michael Asher. I actually live in the Valley with my wife and my 2 kids. You want to say hi, Hayden? I actually live in the Valley with Hayden and Quinn, and we're actually cooking at dinner right now. So that's why we kindergarten. Yes, and also then also Hayden is going to be doing the Thursday kindergarten.
Excellent, thank you. I don't mean to put people on the spot. I'm sorry, you can leave your camera off. I just want to recognize sometimes when you walk away, not that I've done this in a meeting ever, but sometimes you walk away and you're not there anymore, and I don't want to make that be awkward. Yay. Chris, Chris Badger, if you're still there, you want to say your connection?
Sure. Sorry, I was supposed to be cooking dinner too, but I'll skip it for now. Chris Badger, my wife Leslie, and we have 1 daughter who is at the going in 6th grade with Dan Greenleaf's class, and we also have an older daughter who's going to 8th grade at Harwood. And for the record, I definitely would have called that Jonah. So.
I'm not sure who Ben R is. If you're there, you want to say who you are?
That's us. Sorry.
Oh, that's you. Sorry, Becca.
Yeah.
When you came on,
I don't have,
it was you.
I have no idea how to change it.
It's all good. And I'm not sure which Allison is Allison's iPhone. If you're there, if you want to say hello.
Hi, it's Allison. I'm not going to turn on the camera, but I have Elsa. She's going into 2nd grade in Mr. Hubbard's class.
Awesome. I think we got everybody there. It's great to see you all. And so if anyone has other questions I'm happy to stay and answer them. I know I said until 7, and so people are welcome to go. But I'll stick around for a moment or two to answer any other questions people have. And beyond that, I'd say in 1 week, we'll have just finished the first day of the school year. So, yay.
Kaya, one thing I wanted to mention, there is a question about, Kim had asked about 4th graders and instruments or 5th grade. I don't know if you addressed that or not. I'm sorry. It was.
I didn't. You're right. So we've started doing instruments at 5th grade. That is not a COVID decision. That was a few years ago.
And could I add one thing? I have a question from somebody, and I want to kind of address it with the group if I could. So at the beginning of each school year, we have each student has a annual student health questionnaire that they fill out. And this year it's going to be really important for me to know about allergies or any other conditions that may mimic the symptoms of COVID so that we can know that up front. So if you say have hay fever and you usually get a runny nose, then we will know that, because then just a running nose itself wouldn't be a positive answer to, do you have a runny nose? It would be, is it a runny nose that's really yellow or something different than what you would normally have expected? Fever is not something we can waive, but there's a lot of other things. If you have cluster headaches and the headache is, and you have a headache that's your typical headache, that wouldn't be a symptom of COVID. And it's just being able to make those determinations of which one it is. So anybody that shares any information on their annual student health questionnaires, I'm going to be contacting each family individually to have a more detailed conversation about what that looks like, because the folks that are screening are going to have to know that too. Because if I'm unable to share that with them and they just hear I have a stuffy nose and a headache, but that's normal for allergies, we don't want to turn folks away for something like that. And it's really about protecting everybody, but within we have to make some judgment calls on that. And there's also going to be, if you have asthma or any other type of allergy that requires EpiPens, we can have discussions on that too. If there's any impact with those symptoms or concerns about masks, we can go into detail on those also. So I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that. You know, we're coming up very quickly, and there's going to be lots of things I have to discuss. So we'll just have to schedule it, and we will. There's 168 hours in a week, and I'm just trying to see if I can work them all.
Well, you know where to go to dinner, Clayton. I don't know if you were mapping it out, but I can see who's close or having dinner now, and there's some ones pretty close by, and because you're still at school. So. I'm
just shooting for vegetarian, so I just want to throw that out there.
So thank you all. It's a pleasure to see everyone. Have a great night. Keep sending your questions my way if you have them. Take care.
Carrie, if you want to stay for a second, I can try to address that question. I just saw it, so I apologize. No, so if there's any symptoms, it's really going to depend on what those symptoms are. Whether we send a student home, we'll have a discussion after that. So I can't just, again, you weren't on when I think I talked about this before, but obviously I can't diagnose as a nurse. So I'm going to use the best judgment that I can, that if we have a fever and a cough, there's an algorithm that was designed for the school nurses and the providers. And it's not being shared globally, but we can, I can go into a little more detail if it's necessary, but there's a specific symptomology that requires a COVID test directly. Some of it, if it was just a fever and it resolves in 24 hours, then it doesn't require one. But if you have some of the symptoms and you choose not to go to the doctor, for instance, you would be required to stay home for 10 days. Because there is going to have to be some notification that if there are specific symptoms and it could be COVID, it has to be addressed to make sure that it's not. So, you know, it's all about safety of all. And so, and you weren't on too for this part, but there's a meeting on Thursday with school nurses and practice providers for pediatricians across the central Vermont, so District 3 basically. And Dr. Eckhouse, who is the doctor in charge of all of that stuff, and I think we'll also have someone that's just in charge of the family practices, we're going to have discussions on how that flow chart works, how the symptomology works, and making connections to make sure that if we need to call Berlin Peds or Rainbow Pediatrics, we've already talked to them and we already have a mechanism in place to respond to those things, getting appointments or whatever it takes for getting testing done. Does that help with that question?
No, it definitely does help. I'll tell you right now, it's quite difficult to get into a pediatric office. And we haven't even hit, like, what's going to be, probably an influx of this. But even trying to get a regular appointment already is proving to be quite difficult. And the turnaround time on COVID testing is not as quick as one would hope for or think it would be. We have to test a lot of our patients, and right now it's, running probably at a minimum of 4 days for results, and that's if we're lucky.
Is that for positive and negative, or only for regardless of the result?
Yeah, regardless of the result. That's
okay.
Actually being generous at one time or another, because they were short on supplies. It was taking like 7 to 10 days.
Okay, so I don't know Dr. Holmes, but Brina Holmes is the doctor that's in charge of the maternal and child division of the Department of Health. And I talk to her every week. She's been presenting to the school nurses, so we've been working very closely. The things that they've been working on, and I didn't see the press conference today, but they're talking about the either anterior nares test, also the saliva test, having those. I mean, PCR is the way to go. So any of the antigen tests are showing the positive and false negatives where we have some issues. We can talk offline. I know that there could be some, we don't want to just keep kids out of school because we want to keep kids out of school, but because without a test, we won't be able to know one way or the other. And that's where the doctor comes in. So telehealth is a possibility. And that's what we're going to discuss on Thursday, because we're all the whole state's going to run into the same problem. And we're going to try to have a guided conversation to make it so that we can, if we don't want it to be a waterfall, it would really great that, like just with the spigot, we can only have just a couple showing up if we can rule things out. I mean, it would be lovely if we could do COVID tests here at school, but we're not an approved laboratory. We don't have any of the, we don't have the capacity of the testing processes and all the things to guarantee that being taken to the lab correctly. So we're looking at a lot of different things. We're lucky to have Allison Conyers as the COVID coordinator for our district. So she's working directly with the administration. And the nurses are working as a team, providing information to Allison, but Allison's with the principals and Bridget, talking about this stuff in real time. And so and then of course, VSSNA, we're doing a lot of other stuff too. And we're working in conjunction with lots of different moving pieces, but we're going to do it as safely as we can. We got to get our toe in the water. And that's what Tuesday is really going to be like. We can finally start to do this and get to the 21st and really start to expand it.
Right. Can just one of the things that we ran into, like with another patient, is as of right now, they're only doing COVID testing behind the Express Care building, which is across from McDonald's, 9 to 11 daily. And you have to call and make an appointment. And we had a patient we had to get it for in order to start treatment, and they were full for literally the next 3 days. So she had to go up to Colchester. I'm just thinking ahead, like, we haven't heard anything about them expanding that testing time. Could that be a question that you ask?
Yes, it will be, because and we can take this offline, because I know Kaya has family. I want to drive home from work. No, but Carrie, what I'm thinking is that with OpTempo, and you think about what's going to be happening once we have kids back in school, they're going to have to be able to, if we have an uptick or urgency that has to be done, they're going to have to set things back up like they had previously. So I would expect that they would expand that. The SEOC, so the State Emergency Operations Center and the Health Emergency Operations Center, are still open, and they're still doing stuff. They've backed off on how much staff they have, but they might probably choose to expand that. Again, the Department of Health is, in talking with Dr. Holmes, I'm sure that we'll have, did I lose everybody?
No.
Oh, okay, everything locked up on my screen. But I think that I can bring that up on Thursday, and I can also, I think I'll have a conversation with Dr. Holmes tomorrow with just a group of the Executive Council for the Vermont State School Nurse Association and Sharon Lee Treffery. And so we can maybe get that addressed earlier than waiting for Dr. Eckhouse, who's just going to speak for Central Vermont.
Yeah.
So, and I think that they've been thinking about a lot of different things. And so capacity is definitely one. And obviously, if you have all of the students back in school and we're starting to see symptoms that are looking like possible COVID, there has to be something to handle that response, and having one location across from McDonald's, other than increasing McDonald's Big Mac sales, 2 hours a day is not going to cut it if we have a lot of people that have to go there. And so they'll have to make that decision. But I definitely can, you know, it'll help everybody. And I can definitely bring it up, and I can let you know what I find out. So.
Yeah, thank you so much. I was just thinking out loud too.
No, it's okay. We all are thinking out loud, and sometimes it's that one thought out loud that really is the trigger that really gets to an answer. And you know, thinking, I wasn't joking. I mean, this is all I've been thinking about since all the kids went home. This is what I've done. I had no it's because there's so many things that we have to know and learn. And to me, it's been a great experience from learning, but we don't have all the answers, and we're trying desperately. We need to know what we can, and using science to do that. So, but thanks for the questions. It's really helpful.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Sure. So Kaya, I am going to stop recording.